It's great news that Priti Patel, the International Development Secretary, has announced that the British government is suspending £25 million in aid to the Palestinian Authority amid fears that Palestinian terrorists are the beneficiaries of British taxpayers' money. This is a triumph for those who have campaigned tirelessly over the years to get the British government to address the critical issue of funding of the Palestinian Authority that has abused international foreign aid for decades. Director of Israel-Britain Alliance, Michael McCann, can be credited with success for his high-profile campaign on this issue. The Palestinian Authority, as soon as it was created in 1994 under the leadership of Yasser Arafat, used Western aid money to poison the hearts and minds of young Palestinian children in the education system and media against Israel.
يلا شو حبيت تلقينا هلا؟
فلسطيني أنا اسمي
يلا بنسمع.
وكل عروبتي للثأر للتحرير تدعوني وآلاف من الأسرى تقول لهم إلى القدس إليك يا قبلة الدين إلى حرب تدق الظلمة تزهق روح صهيوني وترفع في سماء الكون أعلام فلسطين وتهدر كلمتي تمضي فلسطيني فلسطيني فلسطيني.
يا عيني عليكي، يا عيني يا عيني، برافو برافو برافو، انت كثير شطورة يا ميناس.
An entire generation has been brought up on a diet of incitement to hatred and glorification of terrorism that makes the prospect of peace and reconciliation with Israel almost impossible. To make matters worse, the Palestinian Authority have paid the salaries of Palestinian terrorists with blood on their hands and therefore giving incentives for other Palestinians to become terrorists. There have been tensions rising in British-Palestinian relations, especially with the news that President Abbas of the Palestinian Authority wants to sue the British government for the Balfour Declaration of November 1917 that led the way to the return of the Jewish people to their ancient homeland. This is despite the fact that the British government is one of the biggest donors to the Palestinian Authority. The British government has shown real leadership and courage by suspending British taxpayers' money to the Palestinian Authority, and if more Western countries follow the UK lead, then this could bring about much serious reform of the Palestinian Authority and make peace more achievable in the future. The historical announcement that the British government has suspended £25 million, a third of the British aid budget to the Palestinian Authority, is good news for those who want to see an end to Palestinian incitement and terrorism against Israel. According to the Jerusalem Institute of Justice, their research has indicated that since the signing of the Oslo Accords in 1995, the historic peace agreement with the Israeli government and the Palestinian Liberation Organization, known as the PLO, the Palestinian Authority has been the recipient of 25 times more financial aid per capita than the money that was used to reconstruct Europe after World War II, known as the Marshall Aid Plan. We're talking here in the sums of billions and billions of pounds. Western aid money has not been spent on improving the welfare of ordinary Palestinians, creating jobs, investing in free enterprise. Instead, this money has found its way into the personal bank accounts of Palestinian leaders. Also, it pays for the expensive and costly salaries of those working in PA security and its terrorist infrastructure, including stockpiling of missiles, and has used its education system and media to incite anti-Semitism and hatred. To make matters worse, Western aid money given to the Palestinian Authority has not brought benefits to the people it was designed to help. On the contrary, as the Palestinian Authority frequently violates the rights of its people by carrying out arbitrary arrests, tortures, executions without trial, the Palestinian Authority has abused human rights by restricting freedom of speech, religion, conscience and political association. Therefore, the British government, the European Union and the United States and other Western governments have been complicit in this abuse by turning a blind eye to this evil abuse of power. What has caught most of the headlines with the British media over the past couple of years is that the British taxpayers' money in the form of British aid money has been given directly to Palestinian terrorists serving life sentences for murder in Israeli jails of innocent Israeli civilians. According to the Daily Mail, it's reported that one Hamas terrorist who had masterminded terror attacks in Israel had been given £100,000, while the salaries have also gone to families of suicide bombers. The award-winning US author and investigative journalist Edwin Black wrote a book called Financing the Flames, in which he wrote about the abuse of foreign aid by the Palestinian Authority, how they would incentivize Palestinian terrorism against Israel by giving salaries to Palestinian terrorists on a scale based on the number of atrocities committed against Israeli civilians. The higher the murder toll, the higher the salaries, meaning a terrorist would be extremely well paid in comparison to the average salary paid by the Palestinian Authority. The Israeli victims and their families have been betrayed by Western governments for indirectly funding and rewarding Palestinian terrorists in Israeli prisons with high salaries and encouraging more terrorism against Israel.
Around 60% of the £12 billion that Britain spends on international development is spent through multilateral organisations like the World Bank, the European Union and the United Nations. So therefore, we are sending money to those organisations who then spend it in places like the West Bank, Gaza and East Jerusalem. But in addition to that, Britain has a bilateral programme with the Palestinian Authority, which roughly spends around £95 million a year. But the crucial thing here is that about 25% of that money goes direct into a World Bank trust fund, along with other donor money, which is then transferred to the Palestinian Authority. And the Palestinian Authority have complete control over that cash. Now, that money is then used, and the Palestinian Authority are guilty of sleight of hand now, because they shut down the Ministry of Prisoner Affairs in 2014, claimed they were no longer paying prisoners, but then, and miraculously, at the same time, a new organisation, the PLO Commission for Prisoners, opened up, and lo and behold, in the same year, their budget was raised by exactly the sum of money which was previously paid to the Ministry of Prisoner Affairs. And you're right, in terms of putting it into pounds and pence, as we would say in the UK, this is a tariff. If you're serving up to 3 years in jail, you are paid £250 a month. If you're serving a sentence of up to 30 years in jail, wait for it, you're getting paid £2,250 per month. Let me put that into perspective for you. If you're a Palestinian